And now, please welcome to the stage Chef's Principal Software Engineer, Nell Shamrell-Harrington.
Welcome to day 2. Did you have a good time at game night last night? Awesome. Well, thank you for being here so bright and early this morning. I'd like to start off today with a question. What brought you to Chef? Let's hear some answers shouted out. Working with Nell. Well, thank you. That's a good way to start the talk off. What else? What else? Awesome community. I had a feeling that for many of us here in this audience, the answer would be the same on mine. It was our community that brought me to Chef. It is our community that keeps me at Chef. Now, when I started at Chef 4 years ago, it was the first time in my career that I was paid to write open source software full time. And I remember tweeting this. At the time, I tweeted this. One of the reasons I'm excited and a little nervous about working on open source full time for Chef is the entire world, or at least the Chef world, will notice if I get it wrong. Noah Kanchowitz, a prominent Chef community member, tweeted back at me, "Not if, but when. You get used to your failures being public, fix them, and move on. There is work to be done." Now, this not only brought me some comfort, knowing that I'm not alone, but also some inspiration. I realized, yeah, if I get something wrong, the entire world might see it, but that also means the entire world is there to help. Open source development does involve being vulnerable, but it's a shared vulnerability. We are all in this together, creating software in the public eye and learning as we go. But with that vulnerability, there is a phenomenal feeling of connection, of learning and building together as a community. This is what I consider the absolute best part of open source and the absolute best part of Chef. Now, along with being the best part, it's also the most important part, because Chef the product, Chef the business, Chef the everything else that is would not exist without our open source community. Our community built the foundation upon which every part of Chef stands. When our community is successful, we are successful. When our community thrives, we thrive. Now, Chef makes amazing technology, but that's not what makes our community so good. It's the way the humans who create and use that technology interact with each other that makes our community magical. Now, the first place I witnessed this magical community was on Supermarket. Who here has used Supermarket, either the public one or a private one? All right. Who here has shared something on Supermarket? Excellent. Well then, as you all know, Supermarket is where the Chef community shares Chef cookbooks, inspect profiles, and much more. It's where I started my career and my journey with Chef, and where I experienced working with our community firsthand. Now, something that struck me, we not only share our successes on Supermarket, we learn from each other's successes and build on them. Supermarket is at the forefront of human innovation with technology. And we don't keep those innovations to ourselves. We share them with each other and with the world. For me, Supermarket is a fulfillment of the open source dream, a place to see someone take the work that I contributed and modify it, add to it, use it in ways I never would have imagined. Now, one of the best examples of human innovation on Supermarket is the Sous Chefs organization. Thank you. Do we have any members of the Sous Chefs here today? We've definitely got some of them. Well then, as you know, the Sous Chefs are a community of Chef cookbook maintainers working together to maintain important cookbooks. Now, one of the most incredible things you, our Sous Chefs, do is you adopt those well-used and well-loved cookbooks on Supermarket when the original authors are no longer able to maintain them. You keep those cookbooks active and updated for all to use. Everyone, if you've used a Chef community cookbook, you have likely used the works of the Sous Chef. Let's give them a big round of applause. Now, after working on Supermarket for a couple of years, I transitioned to the Habitat core team. where I saw this phenomenon of human-driven technical innovation again through the Habitat Core Plans. Who here has used a Habitat Core Plan? All right. Who here has contributed to a Habitat Core Plan? Excellent. Glad to have you in the building. Well, as you know, core plans are the literal building blocks for every implementation of Habitat. And not only that, the entire chef ecosystem depends on Habitat Core Plans. Seeing and experiencing what our users do with them, the things they assemble, the things they create, the ways they add to the core plans, it never gets old. Now, there are over 600 Habitat Core Plans. Keeping all of these plans updated and building is a massive undertaking, especially when you consider a subset of these plans that we call the base plans. These are for the lowest level building blocks of software, things like GCC, glibc, OpenSSL, and much more. Every single Habitat plan depends on these base plans. And when one of these base plans is updated and rebuilt, every plan that depends on it must also be updated and rebuilt. Then every plan that depends on those plans must also be updated and rebuilt. This is what we call the rebuild the world scenario. Now, these scenarios are enormous and extremely difficult tasks. And today, I'd like to highlight two community members who have contributed extensively to these rebuild the world scenarios. And that's Romain Sertalon and Graham Weldon. Let's give them a big hand. Romain and Graham, you have been instrumental to our base plan refreshes, volunteering your own time and making it possible for us to do these massive rebuilds. Now, something that has always amazed me about the chef community is that every single one of us knows when one of us succeeds with a chef community cookbook or an inspect profile or a habitat plan, we all succeed. We build on each other's successes. We build with each other's successes. We celebrate each other's successes, knowing that when one member of the community thrives, that means we all thrive. Now, I sometimes take a moment and I think back to my previous tech jobs. I remember how every night and every weekend, I would have this cloud of doom and gloom hovering over my head, dreading what I was going to find at work on Monday morning. Who else here has experienced that? A lot of us have. Chef is the first organization I've worked for where I don't have this cloud of doom and gloom hovering over my head, because I know no matter what I might find at work in the morning, I will not be facing it alone. I not only have the entire company behind me, I have the entire chef open source community at my back. This is the power of community. We can walk knowing that we are never alone. Now, we are at ChefConf talking about the chef community, but community isn't just vital for chef. Community is absolutely mandatory to every business and every industry. The technical problems we face as organizations, industries, governments, even as humanity itself, are impossible to solve alone. The stakes are just too high not to code together, to collaborate and build on each other's work. We need more software to solve the problems we face. We need better quality software to solve the problems we face. And open source communities produce better software. Thank you. When we develop software as a community, we expand our range of experiences. Bigger and smaller companies, bigger and smaller teams, different industries, different cultures, different values, and different needs. We bring in perspectives we never would have considered otherwise. Now, the first place I experienced this was when I was working on Supermarket, and I found out I needed to make some changes to it so it would work in an air-gapped environment. Now, this need had never even occurred to me before, but as I learned, it is mission critical to many organizations to be able to operate our software in environments without internet access. Now, this input came directly from a community member. Without it, we would have missed out on a massive user base that needs Supermarket, that needs a place to share cookbooks and tools, needs that place to build on each other's successes, especially in these air-gapped environments. And as a result, whenever I write code now, I do everything I can to make sure it can be used in all environments, with or without internet, so it serves as much of the community as possible. Our community were the ones who showed me how important this is. Now, we also learned this firsthand when we released Habitat. Community members immediately requested the ability to run it on Windows. Now, this had been in the plan to eventually add support for Windows, but our community showed us that many people want this support sooner rather than later. So we added it in, and now many of our biggest Habitat customers run their Habitat deployments at least partially on Windows. So this was a case of the community guiding us on where we needed to take our product next, on what would be the most useful to the most people at that particular time. This shows how we at Chef, we don't develop software just for our community, we develop it with our community. And perspectives from the community are written into every layer of our products. This is the foundation of our success. Because more eyes on the code, more perspectives, and more contributions make better software. Better software and better community means we have a bigger impact across the world. And as Corey said yesterday, the best way to build software is to do it in close collaboration with the people who use it. Now, we at Chef know the right way to build software. However, building a business on top of creating open source software is a whole nother challenge, one that's become especially relevant over these past couple of years. Now, this has led some people to ask, is open source a sustainable business model? Now, my response to this question is open source is not itself a business model. It's a way of creating and maintaining software. However, the way we apply open source software to our businesses certainly is a type of model, and that model is still in the experimental stages for most of us. Now, at Chef, we used to use an open core business model. This meant the code bases for these core products, Chef Infra, Chef Inspec, and Habitat, these were all open source under the Apache 2.0 license. Now, when we created builds from these code bases, we also distributed those builds under the same license. Certain additions to the core product, like Chef Automate, were closed source. And if you wanted to use a build of Automate, you had to have a commercial relationship with Chef. Now, the idea behind this model was that as people found value in the open core products, they would then want to pay for the premium add-ons to those products. Now, the problem we found, for us at least, is this model incentivized us as a business to keep more of our code closed because closed source products were where we made our money. Additionally, when it came time to decide where to put headcount and other resources, again, as a business, we were highly incentivized to put them on the closed source products rather than the open source ones. So for us at Chef, this model introduced complexities that held us back from creating the business and the community that we knew we wanted to. Something had to change. And this led us to make our bold leap into our new model, where all of our major product code is open source under Apache 2.0. Thank you. It's a good thing. Rather than trying to close more of our code, we went the opposite direction and we made our code more open. Now, this was one big change. The other big change was around the builds that Chef created from these open source code bases. These builds, or you can call them the compiled binaries, whatever you create from that code base and run on a system, these builds created by Chef are warrantied and indemnified, and these builds are now distributed under a new commercial license. Now, we knew going in this would be a big and very controversial change. And we would not have even considered it without a very good reason. The reason we did this is now all of our major products generate the same value while all being open source. This means that tension around whether to spend resources on closed source products versus open source products is gone. I heard some cheers for that. I think that's a very good thing. We are now incentivized to spend resources on all of our products, which benefits everyone who uses them. Now, along with changes to how we code and distribute builds of that code, this new model also involves some changes to how we operate as a community. Now, we used to have 3 separate communities at Chef. One for Chef, one for Inspec, and one for Habitat. And these were each set up with their own system of governance. Now, this was intentional. We felt having separate communities would make it less likely that they would be competing with each other. Now, this did work well for a time, but then we had to figure out what to do when we added Automate to our open source profile, and what we would do when we added more Chef products in the future to that open source profile. Having 3 systems of governance was straining enough. Adding in a 4th one would have been too much. We knew we desperately needed a consistent and efficient system of governance for all of Chef's open source products. As I found out when we started this journey, Chef has over 1,000 open source projects, if you include each core plan as a separate project, which I do. And we desperately needed a simplified way to manage them, a way with less overhead for all involved. This led us to create the Chef Book of Open Source, now available for anyone to view on GitHub. This book defines how we do open source here at Chef and how we function as an open source community. It is, as Corey put it, effectively a collaboration on how to collaborate in open source. Now, the big reason we put this on GitHub is it's a living document. We are iterating on it as we go along. If you would like to work with us, if you would like to walk with us on this open source journey, please reach out. Open an issue, open a pull request, come up and talk to us in the hallway, talk to us at the community celebration tonight. We would love to have you involved. Additionally, for people who are involved in other open source communities, we would welcome and love if you would try out some of the practices in this book and let us know what works for you and what doesn't. Now, implementing and executing this new wave development across Chef was a massive amount of work. But we see it as an extremely worthy investment because, again, open source communities create better software, which means more open source software is better for both Chef the business and all of our customers. Additionally, more open source software is also better for our community. It allows more interaction between Chef's internal engineers and external contributors. It allows us to learn from each other and build on each other's knowledge and experience. And it's not just the Chef community that benefits. The effects of healthy open source communities are felt far and wide. Now, one of my greatest joys throughout my years at Chef has been taking the lessons I learned in our community and bringing them to the Operation Code community. Is anyone here from Operation Code today? Yeah, I know there's at least a few of you. Operation Code is a nonprofit which teaches software engineering skills to military veterans, to the military community, including those active duty service members, those veterans, and their families. Thank you. They deserve a giant round of applause. And one of the ways we teach members of our program is through running real open source projects. One of the best things we can give someone in our program is that real-world, demonstrable coding experience on their GitHub profile that they can take to potential employers. Now, I've taken the lessons I learned from Chef's communities, lessons on open source governance, and applied them to Operation Code. And what this means is members of our program, they not only learn how to code, they learn how to contribute to, maintain, and govern open source projects. They learn how to mentor new contributors and improve our projects for all involved and all to come. It's a virtuous cycle that keeps on giving. Now, additionally, just as I've applied lessons learned from Chef to Operation Code, I've also brought lessons from Operation Code back to Chef. In particular, this one. The idea that we as a community hold ourselves to a higher standard. A higher standard in the work we do, a higher standard in how we interact with each other, a higher standard in how we build technology together as humans. Working together in the open online can be very hard. I think all of us have experienced that at one point or another. But the opportunity we have as a community, the ability that together all of us can do, is we can raise the bar for our community and for all open source communities across the world. Again, with our community, we are never alone. This is a journey that we all walk together. Here is my challenge for every single one of you in this audience and every single one of you watching at home. Hold yourself to a higher standard in every bit of code you commit, in every message you write, in every interaction you have. Let's lead the open source world together in a positive direction. Thank you. The world needs us to do this because, again, the problems we face as a society, as humanity, are impossible to solve alone. But as we solve them together, we improve organizations, we improve businesses, we improve industries, we improve governments, we ultimately improve human lives. Are you ready to build and grow together as an open source community? Let me hear you. Are you ready to hold yourselves and each other to this higher standard? So say we all. Get on your feet. So say we all. So say we all. That was a dream come true right there. Thank you, everyone. I am so proud to be a part of this vibrant, exciting, and committed community. Thank you all for being a part of it too. Thank you.